Hello and welcome to Raider HQ After Dark. I'm your host, Raider. And yes, I am fully aware that we had one of my audio file got corrupted somehow. So even though it uploaded and it sounded good before I uploaded it, whenever it went to YouTube, the sound just cut out. So even though I gave you all the answers, like all the perfect answers on how to win your claims, guys, I gave you all the answers. I'm gonna have to redo them. So what we're going to be doing today is we're going to be going through the October 25, 2025 live stream unanswered questions. Now, if you're tuning in to this video, it's not a sizzle video, but I suggest that you watched all the way to the end. And the reason why is because even though these might not be your questions, the answers might be relevant to you and your claims. So just please keep that in mind. Now let's go ahead and let's go back here. Now I've spent 47 minutes recording the last video, so I've kind of got my thoughts together on this, so we will probably not be spending 47 minutes. So I'm Screwed says, can you have multiple higher level reviews at the same time for different conditions? The answer is yes, you technically can. However, there is something that you have to consider. It is best practice that if you have one rating decision that has multiple clear and unmistakable errors in it, you should put all of those within the same higher level review. And the reason why is because more than one cook in the kitchen on a rating decision can mean that the different DROs can come up with different clear and unmistakable errors within that. It's better if you for the same rating decision, if you have multiple clear and unmistakable errors, put them all within the same higher level review. I hope that helps. All right, what's the best way to organize your BDD claim? By organ system with STRs for each diagnosis. Also, is there a standard file naming format? Thank you for what you do. Okay, first things first. I would organize them by symptoms and I would put them in alphabetical order. Symptoms, diagnosis, whatever it is, on the claim form. Now, is there a standard nomenclature for how you name your files? No. And the reason why is because in VBMS, there's many different columns that the VSRs and raters have access to. One of them that is defaultly unchecked to where the VSR and rater will not view it unless they physically go in and change their own settings is the original name of the document. So it doesn't matter. I mean, like the literal majority of all VSRs and raters will never know what you named your file because it will be hidden from them because of their setting preferences, because you only have so much room on your screen to put a column. And there's a lot more important information than what you named it. So I would say that it doesn't matter what you name anything, the staff will almost never see it. Went to a CMP exam for vertigo, and the examiner said I should file for TBI and deviated septum, but opined against vertigo. She was the first examiner to actually talk with me like a person. I mean, I'm glad you had a great experience. And I'm struggling for a question here, but I think that if they said that you have TBI and they said you have deviated septum, for both of these, you have to have an element 2. You have to have an in-service like injury, concussive injury that could have happened that could have caused both of them. If you do have that, then I would file that claim. All right, Faithful Hubby. Is it normal to have a CMP exam not notification 5 days after I file a claim? Okay. What I think we're trying to get to on this is it normal to have a CMP examination notify you 5 days after you file a claim? And the answer is yes, I guess so. It depends on what region you're in. It depends on how backed up the exams are, how backed up the scheduling is for whoever's doing your exam. So, I mean, is it technically possible? Yes. Do I have any concerns whether or not it's not notified within 5 days or notified within 5 days? No. Just make sure that you attend the exam. Andrew, have obstructive sleep apnea CMP Monday filed for obstructive sleep apnea secondary to weight gain. Very good secondary theory right there. That's a very strong one. With this exam, will this exam discuss the weight gain connection or just the OSA? Is this an opportunity to plead my case? I'm going to be honest with you. Normally, the answer to that would be yes. But because sleep apnea itself is kind of determined by diagnostic testing, there's not much subjective information or lay testimony that they need from you that whether or not you could prove or disprove a matter at issue. They're going to look at your evidence to see when your weight gain happened, when your sleep apnea was diagnosed. That's why I always recommend that you, when you file a claim and you're making a lay statement, that you walk the examiner through the chronicity of the chronological order of your symptoms in your evidence. I was diagnosed with mental health here. I started gaining weight due to this medication here, as evidenced by this testimony, in my record. I was taken off the medication but couldn't lose the weight, something like that. I hope that helps, Andrew. Is it, Joe, is it just me, or are more claims getting top sheeted even after the start of October? Had sleep apnea and obesity claims denied with blatant errors. Both were filed secondary, both were denied directly. So first things first, I would make sure that you look at the rating decision for both of them and see if you can find 38 CFR 3.310. If you cannot, then I might do a higher level review and say, hey, look, there's a duty to assist error. You guys forgot to, what was asked for was not answered. You didn't do a secondary opinion. But yes, a lot more people were top sheeting because of the government shutdown. That's why it behooves you, you still have recourse to where you can do higher level reviews or supplemental claims as needed. But yes, distracted people figuring out how to feed their families typically are distracted. And I just mean that as in the government should always fund this position. There should not be this in the military should always be funded, regardless of whether or not there's a government shutdown. I'm not being political, but it's just stupid. Bob, if the drill calls and doesn't make contact, will they leave a message or a callback number? They typically will leave a message, but keep in mind, they only have to make 2 call attempts. And if you don't answer, then they're going to shut down your claim. They're going to deny your higher level review. And then that's it. You can't go back and get a new one. Jason, if a secondary condition was denied and I put in a higher level review and that was denied again, can you put in for the secondary again? Okay, so if I'm understanding this right, claimed it under secondary, you did a higher level review, you want to claim it again. I mean, the answer is yes. So you can claim it again under secondary, but you would have to do a supplemental claim and bring new and relevant evidence that proves or disproves the matter at issue, why you were denied. And yes, you can do secondary again for that same nexus. All right, Matt, if I have GERD and Barrett's esophagus, do I claim them as one condition or are they a separate rating? So you would claim them separately, but they will likely get combined together. That's how that's going to work. The May 19th, 2024 updates to the digestive system, they did a lot of good for a lot of veterans, but when it comes to GERD, they really clamp down on that. So it's going to come down to whether or not you've got strictures, to be honest with you, for anything higher than 10%. I know a lot of raters are giving 10% out for GERD, but they technically shouldn't be. So wait for that future disaster. And what I mean by that is when you go to the 10% rating for GERD, it says with history of strictures. So if you don't have strictures, then that would be a clear and unmistakable error against you. Okay. Has VA conceded exposure for herbicide agents in Panama 1989 through 1991? No. Officially, no. Unofficially, no. Panama is not a qualifying location for Agent Orange or for herbicide exposure. Barbara, what do I need for a TBI claim besides a positive CTBIE and neuropsych eval? Do I need to send something in to establish a nexus to the TBI residuals. Okay. And the last time, whenever I did this one, I had a big long speech. And I'm not going to remember that big long speech, but essentially, I don't know if you're claiming it as a new thing or as you're already service connected and you're doing residuals. I'm going to assume it's the second one because you said eval. What you need is if you're service connected for TBI, then yes, you need a strong medical nexus, hopefully by medical professionals that start to, number one, establish the diagnosis of the residual and then establish that the residual is there and related to the TBI. It would also be helpful if the residual can be delineated. So if it can be separated, if the symptoms can be separated from the TBI and not lumped in, because getting a separate evaluation oftentimes leads to a higher evaluation. Now, if you're not service connected, then you need to establish element 2 more than you do for the nexus to the residuals. So, obviously you got to get TBI service connected. Kenneth. Now, if I can say one thing as to why the technical glitch that I had where the file got corrupted, I am happy that it happened just so I get another chance at Kenneth's question, because I kind of mucked it up a little bit. So Kenneth asks, retired receiving pay, awarded 20% combined for tinnitus and hearing loss. Effective date for both June 30th, 2024, but have received no back pay for either. Is this concurrent pay issue? Now, sorry, that was a little cut there because the dogs were being bad. Okay. So I'm going to start off by saying I've never worked as an authorizer, and this question is specifically authorizer driven. So I have no functional understanding. I know what the effective dates should be, but when it comes to whether or not like you're retired, do you mean like Social Security retired? Do you mean like you're getting military retirement pay? Things like that. Because if you're getting military retirement pay, you might get the higher of the two evaluations. So if your retirement's higher than your 20%, you might not get that 20% separate evaluation because of that. Now, anything I say on this topic, you have to understand that I up front am telling you that I have no functional understanding about the retirement pay and how that gets factored in. So what I might suggest to you to do is to call the 1-800-827-1000 number and just ask them if payment is pending or not. And if not, then why? Sorry about that one, but I am glad that I got to reiterate this in a different way that was more cohesive to at least telling you that I don't know what I'm talking about. All right. CH Tim, if you have two service-connected conditions that can cause a disability, why won't the VBA get a medical opinion on if the combined conditions cause the new one? Okay, so this is the problem. The secondary theory for service connection behaves uniquely in this situation. The duty to assist, where oftentimes you'll see like, hey, look, I was denied for something. You'll do a higher level review, and then they'll do a duty to assist error and say, hey, look, you forgot, the rater forgot to get this examination. Well, the problem with this is that for secondary theory, it doesn't work that way because there's an exponential different, like you could do secondary to anything. And like the regulations say that we have to go based mostly on what you, the veteran, has to claim it a certain way. We will get that medical opinion because the way we could claim it is we could claim it the disability secondary to the first condition, the disability secondary to the second condition, the disability secondary to the first condition's medication, the disability secondary to the second condition's medications, the combined two of them. Like we would be there all day, and it would be an infinite number of medical opinions we'd be pending for. So unfortunately, with the secondary medical opinion, in order for the sake of like being concise, the VA has limited the secondary medical opinion to you having to explicitly claim it a certain way. And we will also look to see if the examiner answered it in a certain way. So let's say you claimed a condition directly, but the examiner comes back with a secondary medical opinion and says, hey, look, I think it's more likely that it's actually caused by this thing over here. Well, we can use that. That medical evidence can be used to infer. We are not allowed to blindly go fishing for actual secondary medical opinions that were not explicitly claimed or established through medical observations by the examiners. So it sucks, and I know it sucks, but that's why when we fill out our forms for how we claim things, words matter. The words you choose matter more than you know. And that's like, if you guys take anything from this video, that's the main thing. How you describe something can tank your claim or make your claim, more sometimes than the evidence itself. But anyway, that's about all I got for that one. All right, clean music lover. I was diagnosed with chronic migraines and it was denied. I had an in-service event where I was in ICU and medical for a few days. Okay. So, okay, for this one, this is another one of those main nuggets of information that, for how you claim something. Sometimes, and I've spoken about this in other videos, sometimes you can have it to where you get denied directly for something. And what happens is the examiner will look at your element 2, your in-service treatment, diagnosis, event, whatever it is. And sometimes they'll go, you know what? I don't think that that particular injury in service was enough to cause a disability. When the examiners do this, number one, you rarely get to see it because the short form narrative does not provide you the full explanation as to what the medical examiner said. Even whenever sometimes they copy and paste the medical opinions in there, they're a select cutout of it, and it's not the full medical opinion. So when they do that, when examiners do that, they actually, what you get told is you were denied for missing element 3. You get denied for missing element 3 for there's no nexus between element 1 and element 2. You will also get a favorable finding saying that, yes, you did have an in-service medical incident. However, because the examiner said that the condition didn't rise to the occasion of causing a permanent disability, you were in fact denied for both element 2 and element 3. Now, when you try to resolve this, the thing that you'll want to do is do a supplemental claim. But the problem that you're going to run into time and time again is that because of how the examiner evaluated your evidence and came to a medical conclusion on that element 2 doesn't exist, in order to get the thing granted, you have to go back and you actually have to have a medical doctor say, hey, look, I reviewed all the evidence and I disagree. I think that the in-service event actually was enough to cause a chronic disability. And I also think that the chronic disability that was established in service is the same as the one right now. So it's at least as likely as not that the in-service, injury that turned into a permanent disability is in fact the same disability we're talking about today, and they're both connected. So when we're talking about that, that's something like, if you want to challenge this, that's something that I always suggest that you do, that you reinforce that the injury that happened in service was enough to cause a permanent disability. That way, even if it wasn't, discussed by the examiner, you're still preparing for that every single time. So that way you never fall victim to that catch-22, because you'll just keep getting denied. Even if you get a medical opinion, an independent medical opinion, if that independent medical opinion doesn't actually address the prior examiner's discussion about why that condition or that event wasn't enough to cause a permanent disability, then it'll keep getting denied for missing element 3, but they'll keep telling you that you were denied for missing element 3 whenever it's actually element 2 is the one that you're missing. Sorry. I hope that that was helpful. This is something that I think I'll talk about tonight in the live stream. Mr. Rader, they are supposed to be taking those independent medical opinions at face value. I don't know the context on this one, Mr. Ray, but I'm going to tell you up front right now. No. No, nobody takes anything up front. No, that goes against all policy. Even presumptive conditions get a review to determine whether or not you meet element 1 and element 2. There's always an assessment. There is never a blind grant. I've seen it to where people with Agent Orange exposure, legitimate, they get denied for presumptive hypertension because the hypertension manifested before they deployed. So the evidence doesn't support that the presumptive exposure could have caused it because it predates. There is always an opportunity for a rater or a VSR to like turn something on its head, challenge it, fight it, debate it, whatever, however you want to go about it. And like with the other video, I'm going to be going through all of these. So, Mr. Craig, what's wrong with paying for a DBQ? Seems like a good option for somebody with anxiety about dealing with a CMP exam process. I don't disagree. Somebody's paying for you to get seen by the VA CMP examiner. If you go and have your private doctor that you've been seeing for 20 years do the medical opinion, you're going to pay to see them. You know, the visit's not free. So what's the difference? I would rather, the problem that I have with the system, and I think that it would make it a whole lot better, is if there were consequences for not being truthful, for the examiner who's examining you, not being truthful in the examination. Not to the point that they're so paranoid that they don't want to do it, but just like, hey, look, if you put in a good faith effort, then fair enough. But if you tell me that this veteran cannot move his arm and he's over here doing jumping jacks next to me, then something, you know, that's a no-no. Like you're just taking money at that point in time and your ethics have taken a dive. So I think there's ways to improve it. John Gold, and I love the background, by the way. I said it in the last video, but you know, I love the background. If you have your medical records from a community care doctor and submitted them, do you also have to send in a VA form 21-4142 and 21-4142A form? Pardon me. So John, my answer is going to be, and this is based upon my personal experience. Now, there are some raters out there that do watch the channel that will probably go, no, why would you don't have to do that. No. I'm going to take the opposite path and say, yes, every single time you submit a VA form 21-4142 and 4142 alpha. And here's the reason. There are a lot of raters in multiple ROs across the nation who, for the sake of the pursuit of fraud, do not believe, like if you give them all your records, they still will want that 21-4142 and 4142A forms because they are so distrustful. They're like, what's he hiding from me? What's he hiding? He's hiding something. He didn't give me access. What's he hiding? I know people like that. I've even seen people in other ROs like that because I've had to overturn their, like when we do a partial rating, like one rater will do the first partial rating and then the claim gets given to a different RO or the same RO, a different rater will do the follow-up stuff on it. I've had to overturn a lot of initial portions of the partial rating because I'm like, it was sufficient. What's your problem? No, you don't have to wait on that stuff. What's going on? You know? So I don't know, like this is just whenever I talk about the bias of the rater, the bias of the VSR, and keep in mind, they get more points. VSRs get points for sending this out if you didn't submit it. So they'll delay your claim by 30 days. They don't care. They get points. It's not the rationale why everybody does it. Some people do it because they're so fearful of getting a QRT error, because there's no way to guarantee that all the stuff that you submitted is all the things that you have. So technically, under the duty to assist, we need to get all of those records. So that way the rater has the full, complete picture. But there's many different strokes for many different folks. All right. Certified barn door. I love that name. I have documentation that I have resigned in lieu of being fired for migraines. Is that good enough for TDIU? I think it's good enough for migraines at 50%, but when it comes to TDIU, it's up to the rater to decide the TDIU. And the fact that you resigned in lieu of being fired is not the same in many people's eyes. It's going to be the dealer's choice on this one. It's hard for me to rationalize how other raters are going to look at it. Okay. It's in the eye of the beholder. They're going to take that. They're going to weigh that. And, if you've got multiple reprimands for the migraines and disciplinary actions due to your migraines and maybe time off, then I would submit those. That's how you win the TDIU, because what's going to happen is you're going to go to an examination and they're going to do what is known as an economic impact assessment, where the examiner will take the claimed conditions on the, I want to say 8940 form off the top of my head, for the IU claim, and they're going to say, okay, well, this particular migraines would impair him here, here, and here. It would also behoove you to present a job description for the job that you were recently resigned from, because the crystal ball's on layaway when it comes to the rater knowing what job duties you have. Because keep in mind, you've got somebody that potentially has a doctorate or a GED reviewing your claim and applying medical principles to your claim that they have no business doing, but that for whatever reason, the VA allows them to do it. You have to convince the layperson that your injury or that your condition, and in this case, migraines, prevents you from working. So it's completely subjective. It's not based upon medical anything, but the more information you give them as these are my job duties, this is what causes me, like my migraines prevent me from doing this, that, and the other as part of this job, this specific job right here. That's what you need to do. I hope that helps. Maddie G in the house. Okay. Oh, this question. I remember this question. Receiving care from community care, ear, nose, and throat doctor for Meniere's for many years. He is open to giving me an independent medical opinion in DBQ. Secondary to extreme auditory trauma in service event. How often have you adjudicated Meniere's? I've adjudicated Meniere's quite a few times, and that's not the problem. The problem is going to be the secondary medical opinion. Now, you are claiming, okay, this is another one of those nuggets, guys, where I'm going to say something that can be generalized to many different people and many different claims. When you are claiming something that is out of the ordinary, and I would consider Meniere secondary to auditory trauma out of the ordinary, you want to make sure that you do two things. The first thing is you slather a bunch of science around it. So a lot of research studies that show that acoustic trauma can cause Meniere's. Next, if you are going to go through the independent medical opinion and DBQ from your doctor, you need to make sure that your doctor says, okay, as evidenced by this particular, like your treatment outside of service, his treatment outside of service would have, made it, if he would have had the injury the way that this is being reported, then this is a normal progression as per this, this, and this. The veteran identified tinnitus at this point in time, hearing loss here, vertigo symptoms at this point in time, which was in the normal disease process of how the onset happens. Do not just send in a book report, but you need more science on this than normal. Like chronic pain causing depression is that is a go-to normal claim, happens all the time type situation. Raters are leery of weird claims. Examiners are leery of weird conditions being caused by weird things. It's harder to convince them to say yes. So just keep that in mind, Maddie G. And this is one of them. Meniere's being caused by auditory trauma. Yeah, it's going to be something else. And Utsupi. Enjoy. I'm glad I had the opportunity to redo this question as well, because I get to just tell you, I get to skip the rambling and just tell you my final answer on this one. I think you should go to a VSO who has VBMS access, and I think that you should have them go to the code sheet and see for each rating decision which RO, based upon the 3-digit code that is in the signature block of the rater, which RO actually completed the claim. That should tell you who adjudicated it, because the majority of the time, whenever an RO adjudicates it, they hold on to it to have their authorizer actually complete it. So I'm going to read this question again because I forgot if I read it. How do we know if our rating came out of the Philadelphia office? That's how you would know. So the station number should be in the signature line of the rating code sheet. So I hope that helps. And we are, well, we're not doing much better on time. So Richie, I filed for my shoulder within 1 year of RAD, but I was denied for no in-service event nor diagnosis. Had multiple falls in service that caused my back and hip issues, which are service connected. How should I address? I did my P&T for back and hip in service. My physical therapy for my back and hip in service. Okay. So for this one, what you're talking about is you had what is known as a general medical examination. So anytime that you leave active duty service and you file a claim within a year, you get what is known as a general medical exam. General medical exams do not require a medical opinion because the rater will decide the outcome of that particular examination. If they can satisfy element 1 for a current diagnosis and they can satisfy element 2 for an in-service injury, then they'll grant. It's just, but if you do not have an in-service injury, then you should have been denied for that. I would have looked a little bit deeper into it and used the event in service and sent off a medical opinion to say, hey, doc, could this particular fall have injured his shoulder as well? I would have done that. Not every rater will do that. But that's basically what you're going, that's the premise of what you're going to do. You're going to file a supplemental claim, and you're going to say that the new evidence is, I would like it to be considered due to the fall injury, the fall itself that was that has been service connected through these other conditions, because that was not taken into consideration during my original rating decision because it was a gen med. There was no medical opinion to be had. So that's the way I would address it, Rich. MCM. I always thought they paid the attorney before they pay the veteran. No. Okay, this is also an authorizer question for the most part. I have seen it to where the due to whatever reasons, just because I've gotten a partial rating and they hadn't completed the attorney's payment yet. So I've seen it afterwards. I've seen it before. I don't think that there's a rule to that or an exception. I just think it just happens when it happens. So Frank Rizzo, September 20th, VA asked for a 2142, which is the employer's information for IU. September 21, uploaded to my claim file. Explained, HR said that they would not fill it out. Waited 30 days. VA sent another letter asking why I stopped working. Why send this? Points. I'm going to be honest with you. Points. And any rater that's on here listening will tell you that we do not need the 21-42 in order to make any kind of determination about your individual unemployability. We don't. It's nice to hear from them, but we don't need it. It doesn't, we wouldn't delay the claim for one. If one's already been sent and like you've responded, we get what we get. We don't throw a fit, right? We just adjudicate the claim at that point in time. Pardon me. So Yeah, it's just the VSR was getting points, or the rater was getting points, or the rater was scared that they'd get a quality error and they just sent it back because they're new and they don't understand how IU works. I'll be honest with you, IU claims suck. They do suck because the people that like doing them are like masochists to me. I don't know. Like I don't necessarily care for them. I'm objective whenever I do them, but I don't like them because QRT gets weird with them. So, little aside story, somebody got unemployed because they stole from their job, and QRT was forcing the rater that I was talking with to actually grant TDIU, even though stealing is not a disability, right? Their disability did not cause them to steal from the safe at work, type thing. Just weird. Mr. Toyota, I was awarded 100% PNT static for one condition. Congratulations, by the way. My other disabilities equals 70%. I was not awarded SMC-S. Am I risking a reevaluation or anything if I submit a form 4138 through quick submit? Okay. Sorry, to take a drink. I'm going to go with a different route on this. I think that you should file a 526EZ and claim SMC-S1. The reason why I say that is because if you claim SMC-S1 as a missed issue and you say missed issue SMC-S1, then they will have to adjudicate that separately. They'll give you the effective date you should have gotten because it's a missed issue, but it doesn't raise any of the other issues to issue. So none of the other disabilities that are associated with your 100% or your 70% get raised to issue by you claiming SMC-S1 itself. So I hope that helps. Ooh, we're almost done. And we're going fast. We're going fast. I'm fancy. ABQ basketball. Can lay statements be sufficient evidence for symptomology? Yes, in some instances they can. MUCMEs. Medically unexplained multi-symptom illnesses. Symptoms in lay statements matter a lot in that circumstance. What else does? For certain conditions that are not able to be tested for via diagnostic imaging, let's say, like migraines. Migraines deal with a lot of subjective information. What else does? Chronic pain does too. Some neurological issues can be tested through nerve conduction studies, but some can't. So yes, yeah, their lay statements are good. They can be sufficient evidence for symptomology. Now, one thing I will say is they're typically not in isolation. They have to be with a thoroughly, put together claim. The examiner has to agree. If the examiner disagrees with your assessment on your lay statement, then they win. They win 100% of the time. Okay, Chad. Currently 80% service connected for migraines, rhinitis, depression. Have CPAP machine and med records document obesity. Which is potentially the best avenue for OSA as secondary? So I'm going to say that if this fact pattern is true for you, now it has to be true. You can't just make this stuff up, okay? If you got depression and through the act of eating more due to emotional eating, you ate more calories and your depression prevented you from exercising, so you expended even less calories than you normally would, and through that particular set of circumstances, you became obese, and the obesity caused the sleep apnea, that is the stronger claim. Rhinitis and migraines, number one, migraines has nothing to do with sleep apnea. Rhinitis, I've maybe seen less than 10 times in my entire career where rhinitis and sinusitis were the cause of sleep apnea, officially granted. I've seen it denied a lot of times, like more than I can count, a lot of times denied. But of the ones that the majority of medical examiners like is this right here. I hope that answered your question, Chad. Moving on to Barry. How many claims do normal raters handle in a week? And I don't understand why you put that in quotations, the normal raters. It honestly depends on how long they work. Do they work an 8-hour day? Do they work 5 4-9s? Do they work 4 10s? So you have to factor in a lot of different things. How much downtime do they take? Because that'll modify how many points they need. Now, let's be clear. It's not based upon the number of claims that they work. It's how many points they need in a day. So sometimes you can have really big or really, really complex claims that could, net you twice as many points than, a similar claim. So it's kind of hard to gauge that, but based upon what I've seen in my own team and myself, anywhere from 3 to 10 a day. And the 10, oftentimes they're not like actually you're not adjudicating a claim to give it to an authorizer. You're deferring things back. So you're doing like a complete deferral where there's nothing that you can rate. You just hand it back to development and go, okay, stupid, please review this and fix what you did wrong, please. You didn't do anything. You didn't order the exams. You didn't do nothing. But you get points, and the points are what dictate it. So anywhere from 3 to 10 claims a day. So we're talking 30 claims at most a week, maybe. I mean, sometimes people can do more. And that's just for the raters. The VSRs can knock out like a lot more than that. I hope that answered it. I mean, it's a guess at best. Grateful, always. Is getting a DoD ID card if 100% PNT advantageous, or is a VA health card just as good? Okay, this is outside of my wheelhouse, so I'm gonna say that up front. So don't take anything that I say as anything legitimate. Okay, I like the DoD card because I can go to the PX. Now, can you use your alternative ID to get in there potentially onto base? Maybe you can. I don't know. I just like the DoD card because I just show it and they let me on and they let me buy stuff if I want to. So for me, there is an advantage to the DoD card. Utsupi Enjoyer. And I'm probably saying that really wrong, and you can just beat me up in the live stream if you want to about it. And I'll take the beating. But it's like Utsupi. What's your opinion on switching? Oh, geez, this question. Okay, like Utsupi. You are destroying my soul with these questions. This is another one where I have no clue. I have no professional or personal information about either one of these two potential, the CPIE, the CPIW. I don't know. That is also like an authorizer type potential question with how money. I didn't ever work as an authorizer ever. So I had the opportunity, but I took rater over authorizer because GS12 versus GS11. Come on now. But yeah, I have no clue on this one. I'm not going to be able to ever answer this question. I mean, I could do some research, but then again, it would just be like as if you asked your neighbor. I mean, I don't have any specialized experience in answering that questions. And finally, Mr. Craig, can you make a video about personal statements and how best to justify a private DBQ? I've already made this video. I have made this video. This video does exist. Now, whether or not I need to tweak it a little bit more, I'm going to continue to update videos all the time. But I do have a foundational video out there talking about personal statements, how to put them out there, and how to identify, like what's a more probative thing that if I was rating your claim that I would want to see that would make my life 1,000 times easier. Happy rater, happy advocating rater, like type thing. Anyway, that is about all that I have for you at this time. And I'm going to do something real quick. Okay, we can still see that I'm making noises on here. So if this thing does not record and does not, if it gets screwed up again, I'm going to throw something hard. But yeah. Anyway, that's about all I got for you on this one. I'll see you guys here in like 2 hours in the live stream. I think I'm going to drink something because my throat's kind of getting scratchy because I spent about almost 2 hours on this. So anyway, that's about all I got for you this time. Raider out.